Hello, I'm Azai. Welcome back to UuultraC. I just came back from the gym and ate some food, but it's actually like super late today that I got back. Usually I'd be back around 12 p.m., maybe 1 p.m. at the latest, but I had to sleep a bit longer since yesterday I kid you not, the past couple of weeks I've been kind of addicted to Slay the Spire again. I suck at the game, but the game is just so much fun that I really enjoy even when I do a failed run. So I was doing that after the previous episode that I recorded, but you know what? I played that for maybe about an hour or two, right? But the problem was, I kid you not, I bought this game that I thought had 8 scenes. It was like a hentai game. It's still in development, but I thought that it had 8 scenes and I was gonna fap before I go to bed. But I was playing for 4 hours and I'm like, whoa, bro, where the fuck is the 8 scene? And turns out the game hasn't implemented the 8 scene yet. I'm like, oh my god, fuck this, fuck my life. And it was already like 1 a.m. Such a stupid mistake that I did. I mean, the game was fun enough that I don't mind purchasing it, but you know, I wanted to do my deed. But yeah, enough about that. Let's actually talk about the last episode recap. So in the last episode, we found out that, you know, Jotsugai got raped and became a kaiju. I still have no idea why he went into the matchmaking party. Maybe it was to spite the fact that Bell was a guy and he doesn't want to admit that he's gay. I think I'm making assumptions here and I'm giving the game an excuse that I thought up myself, but it's not really explicitly said why he went to the matchmaking event. Like, it doesn't make sense for a guy like Jotsugai to suddenly just go to a matchmaking event, right? But yeah, in that place he actually found a kaiju, and that kaiju turned him into a female. He said, fuck this, I don't want to die, you know, being raped. I don't want to die, which is pretty respectable. He doesn't want to die being desecrated or his body toyed with these, like, you know, fucking kaijus. So he killed himself. But Bell helped at the very end. I don't know why Bell helped at the very end. Bell should have been watching over us from the very beginning, right? Because we already knew about her from the previous event at the bartender place, or at the bar, right? She was a bartender. So I don't know why she didn't help us immediately. She said at the next scene, once we were almost dead against another kaiju in the Hiho studio, I believe. No. This was after the Hiho studio, sorry. After the Hiho studio, he actually met another kaiju who wanted his sense of alertness, the side effect. And he wanted to toy with Jotsugai, right? And he actually did not need help this time because he was already a kaiju, so he killed the guy himself. But then, as he was trying to go back home, he fell down since he was at peace. So the trigger for becoming a kaiju is basically when you're like full of emotions. Think about when you're like Goku trying to go to Super Saiyan. That's probably the way you turn into a kaiju in my, like, logically speaking. But yeah, after we fell down, we actually got saved by Belle, and in that time, she actually told us that she wanted us to say, you know, help me. That is such a ridiculous thing. That is really ridiculous. So you're not gonna help him even though he's dying and you really like him, until you teach this lesson that, you know, that he sometimes needs to say, help me. In my opinion, that is very cruel. That's like very cruel. I don't know what you guys think, but they seem to be portraying Belle as this some sort of savior, right? But I don't agree with that. I actually think that she's very cruel. She's toying with Chotsugai's life. She knows that Chotsugai likes her, but she's a male now, right? And he wanted to die during that time, but no. She actually saved her. Sorry, saved him. So, Belle as a character, I actually quite despise, and I understand Chotsugai for really hating her. But at the same time, Chotsugai has an emotion that I don't have for Belle. He actually used to like Belle, so I assume his hatred is gonna turn back into lovey-dovey shit again. Which, I don't know, I kinda don't really like. But it is what it is. This is this character, and I'm my own person, so I'm just here to enjoy the ride, right? Even though I have complaints about Chotsugai's personality and stuff, I'm actually enjoying this chapter quite a lot, guys. But yeah, that was like the main things that happened in the previous episode. Because other than that, it was just from Chotsugai's perspective, what we saw in Sho's chapter. We went to the Hiho building, and then Sho became Gotlin. We didn't see that the kaiju, the professor or the old man turned into a kaiju after Sho was knocked down. And yeah, it was pretty cool. But yeah, this is exactly after we met up with Belle, I believe. After we got saved by her. So let's continue and see what's gonna happen. Forgot to mention that the pig kaiju was also killed. It was by coincidence, of course. We didn't really try to kill it, but we met up with the pig kaiju that Sapphire was asking us to kill during that time. I don't think we actually met with Sapphire like 2 episodes ago, so I completely disregard Sapphire from the episode recap. I just don't think that Sapphire was all that important, guys. Truth be told. After making sure I heard the bells on the door, I sat up, somewhat annoyed. There is nothing ruder than leaving a mess behind and then not even having the decency to apologize for it. I headed to the bathroom sink. Feeling the cold water in my skin finally woke me up. That was when I also realized that yesterday was that roundworm appeared in front of me in Ishiki's form. Why? The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Maybe it knew that, you were sexually excited. It can read your mind and try to change to fit your ideal person. I froze in front of the window. Detective Photo Studio Reincarnation. At the old words removed and the window reprinted last month. There seemed to have been a miscommunication though. The word detective was still clear. This phone call probably wasn't for my work as a photographer either. Despite that, I picked up the phone just in case. See? I hung up the phone on them and leaned back in my chair. Yeah, those are the type of people that would hire a private eye, I suppose. I turned my eyes toward the window again. I'd have to buy a reference book and redo it myself. I could no longer trust anyone. This time, I heard the doorbell ring. The doorbell's ring on the first floor. I jumped up out of reflex, but I immediately put on my best smile and sat up straight at my desk. A tall, well-built man came in. His humble dress shirt could barely contain his muscles. He has broad shoulders, but I don't think he's very muscular. I resisted the urge to tell him I was taking the day off and led him to the sofa as I wrung my hands. It was a conversation meant for the detective's office. I nodded while trying to find the right moment to interrupt him. I could understand him being very polite though, in this case, even though he doesn't want to deal with this because this is related to his work. But I really think that when he was being polite to the kaiju, Suzukaze or whatever, I think he was being a retard. Why should he care about other people's feelings? It's not like he was trying to hurt her feelings. He was just saying the truth. He doesn't care about her. It was a mistake. So like I become a kaiju or whatever. Can't just keep this whole caged, you know? What the hell?
怪獣に普段はこんな口調ではすみません特殊で
Why is he saying himself as a hoe though?
いやそれは別に
Sadly, I was used to weirdos by now.
この団体の名前は確かオレンジだとかなんとか
Ah, so this is how we infiltrated their base and saw the Iron Giant.
有名なのでしょうか大々会と名乗って選挙に立候補するほど人権団体オレンジはその母体です私も聞いたことがあります
Totally. The Citrus Party's aggressive lobbying was constantly causing problems for the community. They advocated for kaiju rights and hated Icarus. Worried about his brother, Mr. Yamada dabbed his eyes with a handkerchief.
弟は風天族でした友人たちに話を聞こうも彼らも消えてしまったと弟をどうか連れ戻してください
Yes or no? There are always two choices at the crossroads of life. No, I found there's actually multiple choices. You're only fixated on yes or no. I went with the usual choice at times like this.
わかりましたありがとうございます長津貝さん
Guess I'm a detective now. So he always says yes when he's hesitating. I don't know how I would answer, to be honest. I would probably try to wait until the very end, till when I can decide, if there's a time limit. If there's not, I would probably keep that indefinitely unanswered. I think that's my type of personality. I'm not confident enough to say yes or no and then just go with it. No, I'm not comfortable with that choice. Blindly choosing something that I don't think I would be able to commit. First, President Ozura, then Sapphire, now Mr. Yamada. They all clung to me and cried. And then I tell them the kind words they wanted to hear. I had no reason to, other than I didn't want to see any more people cry. I personally don't care if people cry too. But I guess when he saw Bell and his family get killed by kaiju, he was crying a lot, so maybe he was projecting his emotions when he sees people crying. I don't know. I personally don't care though. People are their own selves, and I'm my own self. So if I see other people cry, that doesn't mean I'm crying. I heard the detective that used to work in his office had fled this place in the middle of the night. He must have felt all this pressure I was feeling now to have skipped out on his lease like that. It'd be easy to throw these jobs out. All I had to do was pretend that I didn't hear about them. I had my own sense of justice and morality, though. I could lie, but I couldn't lie to myself. It was my worst trait. I could also do that, but I refuse to lie now. Because, as I said, lying to yourself just hurts yourself. It doesn't really hurt other people, it hurts yourself. Well, you guys on this playthrough probably never heard that, but that's the type of person I am. I used to lie quite a lot to myself. The nightclub was in Akasaka. The cheap cover charge was what attracted its less than savory clientele. There were young people high on drugs gathering in groups on the stairs that led to the basement. The sound of the bass leaking out from the club shook my entire body. It was a den of hippies I'd never associate with in my life. The color of the lights were foreign and psychedelic. The hippies go-go danced. What? What the heck is a go-go dance? Oblivious to the world around them. I ordered a drink at the bar counter. I munched on some snacks while I thought about how these people would one day be parents themselves and worried about the future of Japan. Most people actually will be parents, yes. Most people want to marry. Most people want to have kids. They want to leave an heir. And yes, I do think that those type of people do not have the right to marry and have kids. They're gonna ruin the future. But that's just my personal opinion. A very strong one, but I do stand by my opinion. Those people will ruin the future. It was a place to dance and forget about their fears of a bleak future. Nevertheless, it was the adults that condemned them that were to blame.
あなたの思想を買います。
It was a sober voice that sounded out of place in this bizarre location. I held my snack between the back of my teeth and listened to the conversation behind me.
思想って何？そんなの買ってどうするんだ？
私の思想を買ってもらいます。
難しい。
好きな金額をどうぞ。
ほら、1億。
ただし、同じ金額で私の思想を買ってもらいます。
ほら、乗った。だってオラたち頭空っぽだぞ。1億で売るから1億で買う。
それではこちらにご署名ください。
The men scrambled for the forms and pulled them toward themselves. These guys are retarded. Your head really is empty, and your sense of self is in there too. They're basically selling themselves. They're gonna become husks. Maybe even this unusual sight was normal at this nightclub. No one seemed to question them. Suddenly, the men went quiet. They froze and stared at the floor with empty looks in their eyes. I watched the man grab the forms and leave the floor.
待ちたまえ。
I stopped him on the stairs outside. The man turned toward me mid-step. Orange eyes.
ジャーナリストのものです。あなたは先ほど署名を集めていたようですが、
I suddenly realized the forms had disappeared from the man's hand.
とぼけても無駄です。現場はカメラに押さえてあります。
I had snapped some pictures without turning around.
ある男を探している。写真と引き換えに情報が欲しい。男は3ヶ月前このクラブで。
君は探偵だね。ご家族に雇われたのかな？
それに近い形で。
どうして私に？
As smart as Chotsugai is, I do think that he is a bit too brazen in his like plan. I feel like he should always have a backup. So he should always come with someone to protect him if something goes wrong. I hate it when people answered my questions with more questions. The man came back down the stairs.
バーテンに聞くのが一番だろう。なのにこんなに怪しい私に聞くなんて正確さに欠ける。
Oh, it actually makes a lot of sense if you frequent this place and you're suspicious. I mean, I don't know if you frequent this place, but considering how you just talk to those guys nonchalantly, I'd say so.
本当は別のことを聞きたいんだろ？
He pulled out a stack of forms from nowhere.
やましいことなんて何もない。だから包み隠さず教えてあげよう。ついでに山田君のこともね。勘は鋭いな、君。
Can he also read minds like Sapphire? He held out his right hand. When I took it, my hand was gripped with heat. I let go and found there a piece of paper the size of a business card. There was an address on it. The man then ascended the stairs again.
そこがオレンジの基地ってやつだ。明日にもおいで。
It's this guy. We actually never seen this guy in Joe's chapter. And he doesn't have a nameplate.
Yama-
And I'm back. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. My audio interface is such a piece of junk that it was like disconnecting like crazy. You guys probably heard static, or I will try to remove that, I guess, but Jesus. This is why I feel like this audio interface, I really need to just sell this and buy something better. This is fucking awful. I hate dealing with audio malfunctions like that. That is one of the things that I really dislike about, you know, about technology, I suppose. Like, I understand the mechanics behind it. It's just there's no better connection than there's a better connection, but the port of this stupid audio interface is just garbage. It basically uses a very old port, like a micro B or something, USB Type B or whatever. Basically a printer port. And old audio interfaces used to use the same thing. But now that everything is Type C, this is such a garbage thing that is very flimsy, and yeah, it's just very easy to malfunction. Even when I'm not doing anything, as I said, I didn't touch anything, guys. It's so dumb. But let me... There we go.
案内を出しておこ
待ってください。
I was saying about how we haven't met this guy before, and there's no name on the nameplate. As soon as we shook hands, a memory crossed my mind.
監督
He didn't turn around this time. Director. Huh. The director of what? I guess we must have known that guy.
う。やっと思い出してくれたかいシロウ君。
He was the director of Mother Bird that introduced me to Belle 23 years ago. What? We don't know how old Chotsugai is, but let's say that when he knew Belle, he was about 7 years old. He's probably 30 then. Okay. What are you doing here? What do you have to do with Orange? I had found my own reason to pursue them. A windmill could be seen turning slowly on top of a small hill. What I dislike about... Well, I don't know whether or not this is gonna happen, but I feel like this is the type of game that will eventually have an 8 scene where it's all about lovey-dovey, like, sex. So I think that this is not really going to be ending the way I want it to. So Chotsuga is probably gonna accept Belle at some point, and they're gonna have lovey-dovey sex. I don't know what is gonna be the reason that they have sex like that, but considering I feel like this is that type of game, that's bound to happen. I personally don't care about love whatsoever, guys. Even though Belle or Ishiki or whatever is supposedly loving us in his own way, I don't care about that. And I would personally prefer if Chotsugai reject whatever it is that he's trying to show us. But I don't think the game will do that. You know, it's not really propaganda, but people seem to want to believe that love and affection is going to triumph all other feelings. A windmill could be seen turning slowly on top of a small hill. On this clear day, I was headed for the address I was given. I passed less and less cars the longer I drove, until the road led to an open parking lot. Is this it? Was this Orange's headquarters, like the director said? The secure door looked like it led to an aircraft hangar. I was going to introduce myself, but I couldn't find anyone. This is an aircraft hangar. I finally noticed a strange hole in the door and assumed this was the reception window.
広報の山田さんにお招き預かったものです。
Nothing.
潜在写真を撮りに。
Silence. When I looked into the people, an orange light shone into my eye. Was it a surveillance camera? The door opened, so I must have passed or whatever. So, the manual check thing is to check whether or not you're a kaiju. I understand that. Let's see. I hurried inside before the unseen gatekeeper changed his mind. I thought it was weird that there was a manual guy who was checking irises, but after we knew about the fact that kaijus have orange eyes, it makes a lot more sense. It was awfully humid because there's no way people would understand, other people's eyes are the same or not. There's no way. It was awfully humid. The smell of oil lay thick in the air, making my eyes feel heavy.
山田です。
Someone was suddenly behind me. It was Mr. Yamada's little brother. He seemed so full of life in the photo I saw, but now he looked drained. He wasn't even trying to hide his suspicion.
蝶つがいです。どうぞよろ。案内します。
He wouldn't let me finish. I pretended not to notice the overwhelming pressure coming from him and followed after. The elevator stopped on the floor below. He walked straight down the hall and led me to a room. There, I found a library. It was dry and cool inside. A lot of thick books concerning Orange were lined up neatly in a small learning library. Before I could figure out what was going on, the door behind me was locked. I was trapped in here.
やはりあなたをお呼びした覚えはありません。どこから鍵つけた？
His voice was threatening. I moved away from the door he had me against and slowly stepped back.
王ブライさんに紹介いただき。
ブライさんは直属の上司。くだらない嘘はおやめなさい。
彼に掛け合ってください。
掛け合った結果がこれです。
I searched my pockets but couldn't find the note from the director. He set me up. I calmly pulled out another letter and said,
君のお兄様から手紙を預かって。
The door opened. Oh man, he still has attachments, I suppose. A silhouette of a kaiju appeared in the light. Wow, he already turned into a kaiju! What the? This guy doesn't have any chill. I held out the letter toward that light and let him get a good look at it. There was no way he could deny the handwriting belonged to the brother he spent his life with after their parents had died.
君の目を覚ますよう頼まれてきた。
Okay, I guess if he saw that we were lying, he was just gonna straight up kill us. This guy is bloodthirsty, holy shit.
だが君は不用意に手紙を出した。その不用意が僕を入り込ませた。そうと分かればどんな罰が君に下るか。僕を見逃すんだ。代わりに君を追うなと伝えよう。
I thought it was a fair exchange, but he just became more menacing. I tore the letter in my hands apart and let it fall to the floor. Yamada's hands, no. His tentacles reached for the scraps of paper. I used that opportunity to head for the exit and barely managed to shut the door behind me. He broke it down just as fast. I ran down the hall. I kicked a pipe on my way and created a smoke screen out of the steam. I jumped into the elevator, but it closed just in time. It was just me repeatedly pressing the close button now, plus the wriggling severed tentacle on the ground. Unfortunately, this elevator wasn't going back to the ground floor. It was going down. Some other member was going to find me for sure. Might be the end for me. I looked around the elevator, but didn't see anything I could use as a weapon. The elevator continued down while I panicked. What was I going to do? There was only 5 seconds left. I'd get through this by...
やあ、シロ君。
監督。
Okay, so this guy's name is Burai something. I forgot the last name. Oh, Burai, I think?
なんだよそのポーズ。
I was pretending to be an elevator girl. I didn't think I'd run into someone I knew. At the same time, I was pretty sure this was all Burai's doing. He gestured for me to get out. As soon as I took a step forward, Burai turned away from me.
どういうことですか？話が違う。
いやいや悪かった。 招待したのをすっかり忘れていてね。
Probably trying to gauge our usefulness. You know, he was being resourceful, right? If we weren't able to escape Yamada, I guess he's gonna not care that we died. It's only been a day. If you're going to lie, at least be more convincing about it.
出口まで案内してください。
そう怒らないでくれ。ちょっとした手違いなんだ。謝るよ。それに洗剤を取ってほしいのは本当なんだ。さあ、カメラを頼むよ。
A heavy door opened. The humidity increased as the steam rose. I saw a dim light behind a thick wall of smoke. It was a machine with a black eye. Its body reached all the way to the basement. It was covered in steam, so I couldn't get a feel for how big it was. It had a huge gun that looked like it could fire at any second.
見つけたときは驚いたよ。私には無用だが、これを欲しいという取引先がいてね。
I took a bunch of photos. Even after I was done, I couldn't take my eyes off of it. This thing definitely wasn't meant for peace. Why did they even have this?
カン
Gone, right? When I turned around, the director was gone. This is when Kobayashi and Sho comes in. The door opened from the outside. I immediately backed against the wall as footsteps went right past me.
ギガントロー。戦争のために作られた軍用ロボット兵器だ。使われることはなかったけどな。俺は鉄人と呼んでいる。鉄人？日本軍がつけた呼称さ。
Go, man, Mr. Kobayashi?
俺は今度こそ君の味方になる。怪獣の未来をこいつで変えてみせる。
僕は怪獣じゃない。小塚くんが証明してくれたんだ。もう帰るよ。
待ってくれ、翔ちゃん。俺たちは。
Their conversation stopped. I could feel a sharp glare in my back. I was especially good at sensing when the mood goes sour. That went for now, too.
いや、奇遇だ。
I heard the sound of footsteps surrounding me from behind. I put up my hands and lowered my head, annoyed. Rai!
一体どこから侵入した？
侵入とは人聞きの悪い。僕は広報担当に招かれて正面玄関から堂々と。
山田君と連絡がつかない。彼をたばかったな。
1階のカメラマンに何をおっしゃいますか。
I wonder why Chotsuga here didn't name drop Burai again. Because Yamada clearly wasn't in the wrong. It was Burai. He was played by Burai. Right, I thought. Mr. Kobayashi is a police officer. I could tell from his intense interrogation style that he was used to this. I brought my hands together and crossed my legs while I waited for him to continue. Mr. Kobayashi's face only relaxed when he turned to Kagome to tell him, "Hold on one sec," as he waved. His hand turned into a fist that slammed against the table. I was the one he was glaring at, of course.
貴様が撮った鉄人の写真には何と説明つける？
それも山田さんに頼まれて、さっさと解放していただきたい。
生きて帰れると思うな。貴様は俺が始末する。情報漏洩は俺のせいだ。こんな男と関わったばかりに。
No, this is actually not your fault at all. This is... I thought it was actually your fault at the beginning, Kobayashi, but no, this is a completely different matter.
小林くん、冗談だよね。
He was probably holding back because Kagome was here. If we were alone, he would have already taken the law into his own hands. He grabbed me by the collar and made me stand up.
ついてこい。
小林くん、
見せしめだ。
This was my mistake. The director had seen through my skepticism. I didn't realize this and walked right into the lion's den.
待って。
A sprinkling of water cooled the humidity in the room. He lowered the light shining on me, startling Kobayashi.
一色殿。
私が彼を招いたの。ただちょっと 深く誘いすぎてしまったわね。
Why protect us now, Ishiki? We didn't say, help me. I guess Ishiki is the type of person that at the very end he would help just because he's not cold enough to be able to do what he is trying to do, I think. I think that's the logical explanation for for her behavior, I guess, right? He's trying to teach Chotsugai that, there will be people that will help him as long as he calls for it. But clearly, Chotsugai is not the type of person that would say that. He's the type of person that would do things himself, which is something that I myself understand too, since that's the type of person I am too. What are you doing here?
蝶つがいさん、あなたはもう帰っていいわ。その子も一緒に連れてね。
ぶっ壊されたカメラの代金後で請求させてもらう。
What was he doing on Orange's side? I straightened my collar in a huff and left the room first. I bit my lower lip when no one could see. I headed toward the light and found the parking lot I had started from. It didn't look like the Paprika 800 I rented had been tampered with. As soon as I was about to get in,
待て。意識殿が許しても俺の気が済まない。
the way he had to defer to Ishiki made me scoff.
規模もセリフも金持ちのヒーローごっこは格が違うな。
ごっこだと？
さあもっと怒って変身したまえよ。写真を撮ってあげよう。
Jeez, this guy really knows how to piss people off. Kobayashi turned his anger toward Kagome.
翔ちゃん、今日のところはお別れだ。また迎えに行く。
Kobayashi muttered sadly before returning to the institute. The door slammed shut. I turned to Kagome, who had frozen on the spot, and opened the passenger door for him without a word. The car squealed as we left Orange's base for operations. After returning down the road, I'd come for a few minutes.
どうしてここに？
This was going to be the worst carpool imaginable. The last words we exchanged insinuated we would never see each other again, and yet here we are. Here we were. When I lit a cigarette to spite him, Kagome rolled the window all the way down and sat back as far as he could.
僕に付きまとわないでください。また悪い噂を流すんでしょう。
The world doesn't revolve around you, Kagome.
そ
For
んな
sure.
に不都合な真実だったわけかい。要するに僕を敵に回さない方がいい。
I took out a piece of paper from my breast pocket. He frowned when I handed it to him.
よく見たまえ。
I wasn't just locked in that room back there. The entire institute was engulfed in steam, so there couldn't have been that many rooms as secure as that one. I figured all of their documents would be in one place and took a look around the room. My intuition was spot on. I was looking for something to use against Yamada. I immediately searched around, and what I managed to grab was a list of people Orange had tried to contact.
その名前に見覚えは？なんだ？
字が汚くて読めません。
ああ、くそ。
Hasn't he ever heard of shorthand? I begrudgingly handed him a torn piece of paper. He spotted on a name written on it and gasped.
その名に覚えは？
父の名前です。
There weren't that many people with the last name Kagome.
君のお父さんはオレンジに注視される人物だった。何か聞かされていないかい？
That's actually true. Kagome, I think, usually is just a first name.
何も。
カゴメ博士は当時の軍事開発に関わっていた。さあ大変。これから君は悪の組織に追われるだろう。
Maybe that was too dramatic. I mean, this guy played a kaiju in Icarus. He must love this kind of suspense. When I looked at him, though, he was staring ahead with a blank look on his face.
僕は関係ありません。
そう一点張りでいたまえ。だが不安だろう。怖いだろう。そこで僕の近くにいれば安全だよ。
放っておいてください。
ところで今渡した名簿はどうした？
捨てました。
バッハ
I instantly slammed on the brakes. I hadn't put on my seatbelt, so I was the only one who got jerked forward. My fake smile disappeared as I forcibly removed Kagume's own seatbelt.
バカか君は。今すぐ取ってこい。
I couldn't tell what he was feeling. Well, there was nothing but anger he'd need to hold back right now. The paper was swept away by the wind and was probably dissolving in the nearby ocean. I reluctantly stepped on the gas. I slowed down and headed toward a rental car place. Suddenly, a familiar white Subaru passed by. I pulled into the parking lot and came to a stop. Isn't that my car? Was I dreaming? Hallucinating? Was I just seeing what I wanted to see?
ちょっと待っていたまえ、カゴメくん。
Whose car is this one then? The Subaru was driving away. I pointed a shaky finger as I asked an employee for an explanation. Oh, he probably put this here to rent another car. For collateral or whatever. Since he doesn't want to get tracked, I think.
あれは
昨日入った車です。夜には帰ってきますよ。
Wait, what the fuck? No? Huh?
誰が乗っている？
若いアベックです。
Huh? I focused my eyes on the rear view mirror inside the car. Is it Miyamoto and Sapphire? The safe birth charm that should have been a drive safe charm that someone had given me was hanging from the mirror. There was no mistake then. I jumped back into the paprika and zoomed toward those assholes. Kagome had gotten out at some point. All I could do was pray we would never meet again. Who the fuck is it? Is it actually Miyamoto and Sapphire? I drove up beside them at a stoplight and knocked on the window 3 times. What? Who the fuck is this? Inside was an ugly hippie and an ugly girlfriend to match.
悪いが手違いがあった。貴様らはこちらの車に乗り換えろ。
なんだその態度。やっ
ちゃえ。
How did he get my car? The man stepped out in front of the woman.
ゴミ相手に穏便に済ませようという心遣いを無駄にするな。
This guy isn't even a kaiju.
どこが穏便だ。
当社費で穏便だ。
生意気ってんじゃねえぞ。女みたいな顔しやがって。
According to the law, protecting one's rights was unavoidable. I grabbed the man by the arm and threw him over my shoulder. I jumped into the driver's seat of my Subaru as the man went to pick up the knife that got knocked away. This upholstery, the feel of the seat, the steering wheel. This was definitely my car. I looked to my side and saw a woman still sitting there.
このまま発進して。
黙れ、ブス。
Get the hell out of my car. She's not as ugly as you say, but even then, I don't care. She was clearly in cahoots with that other, other ugly hippie, as you say. I opened the window and ventilated the interior of the car. The road to Tokyo Bay was empty. As far as I could see, it was only me and my Subaru. The equipment I had piled up in the back seat the other day was gone. Is it a director? Did he get our car somehow? Huh. I'd have no trouble replacing the camera and the reflectors with enough money. It was the documentation I'd never be able to get back. It smelled like flowers. Yellow blanketed the mountains. The wind came down toward the ocean as yellow flooded the Subaru's interior.
可愛い車に乗ったの。綿菓子みたいに白くてね。椅子はキャラメル色。中はお花の香りがしたのよ。
So, you bought this car for her, then?
僕も乗りたい。夢のお話。だから私ももう乗れないの。
I mean, these emotions, it's not like I'm immune to these emotions, it's just, I find them really irrational.
じゃあ僕が買う。車って高いのよ。そうなの？でも買うよ。将来すごい役者さんになってベルちゃんを迎えに行く。本当？うん。だから待っててね。約束だよ。 大好き大好きよシロ。
We were always talking about our dreams. The sun set over Tokyo Bay. I smoked a cigarette inside of my first car. The seat was torn, probably to make it look vintage, and the leather steering wheel was scuffed. Anyone who truly loved cars would never do such a thing. How could the rental place do business with poor people who couldn't even afford to buy their own car? The rental place. So how did this car even get sent to a rental place? My cigarette burned all the way down to my fingers. Clearly, this car was rented out, right? But what happened? Is what I said actually true? But, you said that the car came yesterday. I don't know. I got out of the car. I wanted to throw this emptiness into the ocean along with my cigarette butt. I thought I could make myself feel better by acting like a hippie. In the end, I just shoved it into the ashtray that I paid for myself.
車を運ばせたのはお前だな。
I heard the sound of heels behind me. What the hell? He stood next to me and looked down. His eyes were lowered as if he had something to say.
もうイカロスに関わってはダメ。
Oh, it was to teach him a lesson, I guess. But what the fuck? Yo, that's stepping on his feelings too, you know? I feel like, I don't know, Belle has been stepping on Chotsugai's feelings ever since she turned him into a kaiju. Even though this might be for his own best interest, even then.
お前はイカロスの仲間じゃなかったのか。
He shook his head.
私は彼らを憎んでいるわ。あなたと同じ。
違う。
We're nothing alike.
お前らの目的は何だ。
怪獣にとって住みやすい世界を作ること。
住みやすい世界。
He was trying to choose words that wouldn't piss me off. I couldn't stand that attitude of his.
僕は貴様んとこの怪獣に侵されかけた。貴様の格好をした野郎にな。オレンジはあんな蛮行を許すのか。
A kaiju you worked with. Yeah, I guess it's the first one is the one who snatches penises. The second one though, it might not necessarily be connected to Chotsugai.
怪獣の権利を主張するなら、まずは悪玉怪獣の排除が先だろう。
I agree.
善悪は個々が決めるべき。自分が気に入らないから殺す、犯す。それでいいと私は思う。
I actually agree with that too. I don't know about violating them, but I would kill them, of course. I see no reason to violate anyone. I'm not some sort of like crazy guy who enjoys seeing people's emotions or something. If I don't like something, I'd rather to not have that thing that bothers me be alive.
原始時代じゃねえんだぞ。法律の必要性を考えろ。
その法律は私たちを守ってくれなかった。オレンジこそ本当のリベラルだと思わない？
Not really. The thing about politics, guys, is that don't trust any politics really. Be critical. There's bound to be something that they benefit if the other rises in power, right? Don't become a mannequin that people, you know, that you are controlled by other people. You need to take control of your own life. I turned my face away, annoyed. I don't care about politics, but I do pay attention to it because I live in this world, right? And even if you don't want to pay attention to politics, it's gonna drag you at some point. Its power is too big. Ishiki chuckled when I pressed against my left eyebrow out of habit.
ちょっと難しかった。
貴様は僕を好きだと言ったな。僕の低層がどうなってもよかったのか。
And as long as you're still alive, I guess she doesn't care. What if I hadn't had the strength? What if he had defiled me back then? Would he have stood by and done nothing until I called out to him? Sorry about that.
白のズボンが脱がされたらぶっ殺そうと思ってた。
You should have killed him as soon as he got my shirt off. What happened to your sense of duty? Ishiki leaned against the car and turned toward me.
あなたって素敵よ。
貴様に言われても全く嬉しくない。
そういう冷たい態度。
相手に余計な気を持たせないためだ。
そう。
心に決めた人がいる。
それって
もう死んだ。
Belle was gone.
私が女だったら優しくしてくれた？
Maybe Chotsugai would have. I don't know what I would have done in this case. Maybe not. I mean, the reason why he's nice to Belle is because he has those memories, right? But if I place myself in Chotsugai's shoes, I don't have those memories of Belle, so of course I wouldn't care whether or not you're a girl or a guy.
ああ、女ならな。だがお前は
Oh, sorry about that. It wasn't
白
done.
は家族が欲しいのね。
それが人としての役割だ。
This is talking about gender roles. I personally do not care about this either. I do not care about having a family. I do not care about being a man. It was my duty. It was my instinct. Come on, even though it is your instinct, we are an evolved creature. We are not animals, Chotsugai. We can control our instincts. It was what I dreaded.
ごめんなさい。たくさん失わせてしまったわね。
貴様は普通じゃない。誰に感染させられたんだ。
監督よ。
Tears fell by my feet when I lowered my head.
誤解しないで。
I had no idea why I was crying. This guy was in Belle. I couldn't care less who he slept with. That was what I tried to tell myself at least.
オリンピックのプールサイドであなたを見かけたわ。ただれた顔を見られたくなくて結果も見ずに逃げた。
So he's saying because he was still alive as a chick, but because he didn't want to see, he wanted us to see the face, she turned into a kaiju and then turned into a guy. But why? Why turn into a guy though?
傷を治すには怪獣になるしかなかったの。
僕もお前に似た男を見た。顔の傷などどうとも思わなかった。
Okay, so he saw her. Wait, at that point he was already a he? Or I guess he was never a she to begin with?
白。
もう僕の前に現れるな。
それはできない。
Was this bastard even listening to me? When I tried to smile, my cheeks twitched and the tears wouldn't stop falling. Whatever. Who cares? I'll show him my crying face.
貴様が何を言いたいかやっと分かった。僕のせいで怪獣になったってことだろう。
違うわ。
If I hadn't invited him to my house that day, he wouldn't have gotten injured. If he hadn't seen me again, he wouldn't have wanted to become a kaiju.
私は望んで。
医者しろってんなら払う。言えよ。 示談だ。
お金の問題じゃない。
じゃあ何が望みなんだ。どうしたら貴様から解放される？
逃がさないわ。
Isn't that something a villain would say?
でも少しは考えてもいい。キスしてくれたらこの気持ちも落ち着くかも。
はあ？
23年間あなたのことしか考えてなかったんだもの。私もこじらせちゃった。
I don't think I would ever think about anyone else other than myself for more than a couple of hours. Thinking of someone else for multiple years is pretty insane to me.
もってなんだよ。貴様のそれは執着って言うんだ。
It was nothing like the pure feelings I had.
一回だけよ。
He spun his index finger around as if he were trying to cast a spell. I didn't have to be... something? Huh? This felt just as awful as when that creepy bug did it.
お願い、シロ。一回したらもうあなたを追いかけない。
Belle's smile, which I had been dreaming about for 2 decades, was now in front of my eyes. It was a smile filled with joy, on a face that signaled something sinister. If we could say our goodbyes forever with just one kiss.
わかった。
I pulled out a notebook from my breast pocket and wrote it down.
被告は原告の要求に応える。原告は催促しないこと。ことが済み次第さっさと消えること。
He actually put it on paper.
判決には規範力が生じる。
I handed the notebook with a pen so he could sign it.
まあ、わかったわ。
だが勘違いするな。これは和解協議じゃない。お前の勝ちでいいと言ってるんだ。
Ishiki handed the pen back to me and pressed his orange-colored lips against the paper.
ありがとう。勝たせてくれて。
You don't get it at all, though. His eyes were filled with my reflection as they wavered slightly. Unable to keep looking at them, I returned to the driver's seat. He got into the back seat for some reason.
おい、助手席に来い。
そこだと狭いわ。シロが後ろに来て。
I forced the door open and slammed it shut before sitting down next to him like he asked. How the hell did things end up like this? He was staring down at me, so I stared back up. Felt like it'd be my loss if I looked away, so I continued to act indignant. Now that I was looking at him up close, I could really tell that the structure of his face was different from that of a Japanese person. I wondered what he was thinking about as he stared at me.
さっさとしろ。
The palm of his hand slid around my cheek before I could finish speaking. I placed my hair behind my ear. I continued to glare at him while I pretended to be calm.
目をつぶっていて。シロ。
I narrowed my eyes as much as I could, pretending to close them. Ishiki chuckled, then placed his other hand over mine. He devoured my lips. Startled by the soft feel, my body tensed up. His fingers slid between mine and I unconsciously squeezed them. His thumb caressed my temple. I thought I heard him say, "Open your mouth," and I helplessly complied. Idiot. His tongue slid inward. I guess we're gonna have to do the deed right now. As it grazed my teeth, he began letting out hot sighs.
本物の私はどう？
なあ、
全然違うでしょ。
知るか。
答えて。嫉妬してるんだから。
だったら。
Should have saved me sooner. I'd rather die than say that, though. He made an obscene sound with his lips before pulling them away. As soon as I felt relief that it was over, he sucked on my Adam's apple.
貴様、
His blonde curls shook beneath my chin. He didn't authorize this.
大好きよ白
I don't care. This is rape. He got strength in his grip at some point and I couldn't get away. I tried to pull away, but I was no match for his physique. He caressed my chest with the tip of his tongue. His saliva spread as he sucked and slurped at me. As soon as I went stiff from that indescribable feeling, I pulled away, leaving a lipstick stain on my shirt.
キスってこういうものよ
Ishiki smiled in front of me. He then kissed me again. He teased the wet tips of my chest with the flat of his fingers.
やめろって。
約束したでしょ
もう終われ。
だらしのない人ね
I bit his tongue.
どうせこれもブライに教わったんだろ。だらしねえのはどっちだ。
He kissed me so deep that I could barely breathe. Sobs welled up in my throat when he pressed against the back of my tongue. My mouth distorted as if I were going to throw up. Suddenly, his long fingers were tapping against my crotch over my pants. And he's trying to say, Jason, that I don't care about this smut scene. Unlike the first H scene, this doesn't contribute to anything other than, you know, her messed up, desires to want to fuck us. I don't care about that. Fuck this. Ishiki, you bastard. He was touching me there.
言ってみせて白
Like hell I will. I glared as he stroked me hard and rough. If I was Chotsuga, I'd probably just become a kaiju right now and, and you know, fly away. I don't even care about my car at this point. He was smiling, amused. His hand wouldn't let up. I must have pissed him off somehow. He was staring straight at me. I had no intention of turning away from him. But... I felt something awful spreading inside of my underwear. My dick had betrayed me. I panted shamelessly to regain the oxygen that had been cut off from me. Ishiki kissed me even more in that state.
一回つっただろうが。
日をまたぐまでが一回よそういうものなの
You didn't have to tease me for being an experience. Man, I really want to kill this stupid asshole. Ugh. Did you really think I'd let him leave alive after what he just did? As soon as he let go of my hands, I grabbed his hair and pulled him toward me. I kissed his surprised face. This is so smutty. If I was Chotsuga, I would just get something sharp and, and you know, stab it in his throat. I then bit his tongue hard and swallowed down the saliva that came overflowing. I am starting to realize that I have very violent thoughts, guys, when someone is clearly, disrupting my inner peace. And clearly, Ishiki here is disrupting my inner peace.
終わりだバカ。
待って
I staggered back into the driver's seat. I turned on the engine and gripped the steering wheel. Nevertheless, he wouldn't get out, and instead leaned forward.
ごめんなさいもう1秒だけ
うるせえ。
濃い唾液で副作用が移るのだから今あなたに
知ってる。貴様んとこの変態怪獣が実践してくれた。
もう一回キスすれば戻るから
Wait, what side effects do we have?
常にリスクを考えて行動するんだな。
It was hilarious watching him embed the toy he had thoroughly played with. Seeing Ishiki panic brought a smile to my face.
ダメよ返してあなたに危険が及ぶ
早く降りろ。
シロ
可愛い子ぶんな。
調子乗りすぎだわ
おいどうした。いつもみたいにさっと消えてみせろよ。こんな感じか。
I quickly flickered away and back. It was like having the power to go invisible. The perfect side effect to have when shadowing people. Okay. That's his side effect. Ishiki watched me disappear and reappear with an annoyed look in his eyes.
降りるおかま。
異議申し立て。
降りるおっさん。
それだけは言わないで。
Right. Us 27-year-olds were already old men. So, he was already saying he loves Belle when they were 4 years old? Guy, I feel like that you were a retarded 4-year-old. Just stating the truth, okay guys? A fucking 4-year-old would do anything for a girl? How retarded. When I was 4, I could barely, remember anything. Now I knew how I felt when that Kobayashi kid called me old. I looked at the dejected Ishiki and felt my cheeks twitch.
返してほしいなら条件がある。オレンジをやめろ。そして今日から僕の奴隷になれ。
So stupid.
私があなたの
I'd never let him go at this rate. I hadn't had my fill of revenge just yet. So dumb. It felt like I could fall asleep standing up. I suddenly remembered my grandfather's face in his final words. He had cursed me with his dying breath. He was ashamed I was pursuing a career as a photographer while having the qualifications of a lawyer. His last words were, "I'm going to tell your dead parents about what a terrible son you are." Humans will eventually die, so they should do whatever they want while they're alive. I agree. Don't do what others want you to do. Do what you want to do. That was what I thought back then. Now it's different? There was some tea with a lovely color on the table when I got out of the shower. It was the tea a customer had given me some time ago. Ishiki was leaning against the wall, watching me.
気が利くな。まずはお前が飲んでみせろ。睡眠薬でも入ってるんじゃないだろうな。
I always set some pills in the cupboard. His sharp ass probably found them.
あなたに嫌われるようなことはしない。
What bullshit!
お前が飲め。
He picked up the teacup. He then carried it over to the kitchen as if he were walking down a runway. There was something in it. I needed to be on high alert.
腹が減った。後ろで見張るから飯を作れ。
そこまで疑うなら自分で作れば？
貴様は僕の駒使いだ。支度しろ。
ちょっと楽しいわ。
何？
おままごとみたい。
うるせえ。貴様のようなママがいてたまるか。
Ishiki opened the fridge and was shocked by how empty it was.
いつも何を食べてるの？
別に。
This guy's kind of like my brother. Doesn't really think about what to eat for the most part.
で、何を作れって？
I feel like you should really enjoy what you're eating since you eat every fucking day, guys. You eat till you die. If you don't enjoy eating, I feel like you're missing out a lot of life.
母国のドイツ料理でも作れ。
覚えていてくれたのね。嬉しいわ。
This fucking light-skinned giant. Stop trying to sound cute.
じゃがいもとチーズはある。最低限の調味料も。けど、お肉がないわね。
あるもんで作れ。
He ended up making cheese Rebekuchen. Did I say that correctly? I know it's not Kuchen, a well-known dish from Germany. I don't know what that is though. It was a dish made from fried potatoes, covered in brown sugar and topped with cheese.
ひどい。
Oh, sorry, I thought he was done. I'm like waiting for it, but it's actually taking a couple more seconds before he says the word. Do we not have brown sugar?
むしろどうやってここまでまずくした？まだ能力を隠し持ってるのか？
失礼な人。
なら食ってみろ。というかもったいないから全部食え。
I got up from my seat and Ishiki sat in my place.
あ、まずい。
だろ？使えんゴミ。自分の手がでかすぎて一つまみの分量がおかしいんじゃねえのか？
ああ、それ、きっとそれだわ。長年の謎が解けた。
I feel like they're actually having fun. This is so stupid. I left Ishiki alone and turned off the light. The snow and the neon lights colored his cheeks.
明日は1階のスタジオを片付けておけ。
わかったわ。
余計なことはするなよ。
おやすみなさい、シロ。
I guess what Ishiki is trying to say is that, you know, back when we were children, he was falling in love with his own version of Belle. And this is actually how Belle is like, right? So there's not necessarily anything wrong with what Ishiki is doing, it's just... I feel like he's also not really respecting our feelings. I went into my room on the 3rd floor and locked it tight. I dragged my clothing rack over to the door just in case he tried to force his way in. I finally turned off the lights and jumped into bed.
ぶっ殺そうと思ってた。答えて。嫉妬してるんだから。
呼ばれなくても来いよ。
I closed my eyes and darkness fell. The director was petting my head. His cheerful profile came into my mind. I woke up the next day at noon and went down the stairs. Ishiki was sleeping in my chair. His long legs were resting on the desk. He was as still as a statue. He fell to the floor once I pulled the chair away. His eyes shut wide open.
ごきげんよう、一色くん。
おはよ
下へ行け。
I shoved the dustpan and a broom into his chest. I made sure to carefully wipe off the desk in front of him.
なんだ、文句があるのか。
う。いいえ。
Stop smiling, moron. I didn't have any plans for today. I needed to let Mr. Yamada know about what happened, get my retainer fee, and close out his case. Calls usually came in after 9, but it was just a bunch of people who thought this was a detective agency. Is this place listed as a detective agency in the phone book? It was a quiet afternoon once I pulled out the phone cord. Eventually, I heard 2 sets of footsteps coming up the stairs.
おはようございます、社長。
I heard a cough from downstairs.
誰かいる？
で、何の用だ？
Sapphire fidgeted nervously. Miyamoto stepped forward for him.
私のおかげでサファイアくん元気になったでしょ？
So, how does that have anything to do with me?
記念に写真撮りたいなーって。
How much are you gonna pay? I did wonder how Miyamoto's crush would work out for Sapphire, but luckily, he was just as eccentric as she was. Ishiki was cleaning the powder room when we went down the stairs. Miyamoto struck a battle pose. She really did love Icarus, huh?
この方は？社長にぞっこんでただ働きって感じか？
そんなとこ。
They really didn't need to interact with each other. I was about to go smooth things over, but the conversation continued without me.
このマイスイートサファイアくんに今からメイクする。
おい待て、サファイア君は男だろ。
男の俺が化粧をするなんて、それって興奮します。
I do not care whether you're a guy or a boy, or sorry, a guy or a girl. I hate makeup. It's covering the things that should be there. I don't want to see delusions, guys. I want to see the truth. If you have a big fucking zit on your face, then show it off. Sure, it might not be the prettiest, but it's sure as hell better than using makeup to cover shit that's there. Sorry.
盗作しているな。
I fucking hate makeup.
それなら私がしてあげましょうか。着付けもできるわよ。
I hate makeup. I had like plastic surgery. I hate things that changes things. That's that was never there. Or I guess that was there.
片付けをしていたら綺麗な着物が出てきたの。
There were stylish coming of age. Why did I say that weirdly? There were stylish coming of age ceremony kimonos here that a previously client had left behind. Ishiki held it up to Sapphire and nodded.
あなたたちに似合うと思う。ウランも撮るでしょ。
いやでも私写真とか恥ずかしい。ウランって呼ばれた。
勝手に話を進めるな。
シロはカメラの準備でもしてて。
Or whatever.
こいつらには安い機材でいい。
それじゃあ外で待ってて。今からこの子たち着替えさせるから。
Who put him in charge? I was locked out of my room by myself, with nowhere else to go. I leaned against the windowsill. I listened to their conversation while I removed my camera lens.
きつかったら言うなよ。
気にせずきつめでお願いします。
ふっくらしてる方が可愛いわ。
Sorry about that. Yodo? Ishiki's laughter tugged at the depths of my memories.
髪も整えましょうか。
一色さんって美容師さんですか？
昔、ショーに出てたの。着替えも髪結いも自分たちでやらなきゃいけないとこのね。
エッチいの？
下着も履かないやつ。
My hands holding onto the camera started to shake on their own. I was remembering my grandfather's words.
遅い。
いけず、ちゃんとお金払うのに。言っちゃいました。プンプン。
私が撮るわ。
一色さんは追いかけた方が。だって社長。
Right, you can read our thoughts. Last night's snow lay thick on the ground, making my steps more cautious. A black car turned left in front of me while I waited at the intersection. That was Mr. Kuroki's car. I couldn't believe someone as finicky as him drove himself around. There was no one in the passenger seat, but his mouth was moving cheerfully. I followed his car to kill some time. I had nowhere else to go after all. The car turned down a small street of Dogenzaka and under a multi-tenant building. I parked at the building opposite and lay in wait at my emergency staircase. Like going to his mistress or something here? I put a telephoto lens on my camera and focused. I heard he had a penchant for actresses, but it'd be pretty careless of him in broad daylight. The curtain shook in the room. I immediately turned my camera toward it and saw a familiar man there.
鞘師。
Mr. Kuroki was sitting on the bed behind him. He pointed at something and Sayashi closed the curtain halfway, blocking the bed. He placed his white jacket in a chair. Even an actor like Sayashi had to sleep his way to the top, huh? Why did he want to live his life like that? I thought about him and my hand stopped. Whatever. Sticking around here would just be a waste of time. I do not have... I don't really think about people a lot, guys, so that's why I don't understand his emotions. Like, in my mind is that I give people my thoughts, and if they don't agree with me, I don't care. They're free to do whatever they want. I want them to be more critical with their life, of course, but I'm not God. I'm not trying to change them. I don't believe I'm living 100%, how people should live in the first place anyway. I'm human too. Like, I think that what I'm doing is correct, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the only correct way, or if it's even correct to other people, right? I took a compelling picture and decided to go home. But yeah, for the most part, I just do not care about anyone other than myself.
何をしていらっしゃるんですか？
Verino?
撮影所でお目にかかりましたね。
He was one of the assistant directors at Hiho's studio. I was pretty sure he said his name was Hibarino. Him being here must have meant he was Sayashi's assistant.
鞘師十郎が営業をしている。その現場を撮っただけ。
営業？おかしいですね。重郎は生放送に出ているはず。
なら、証拠写真はそちらの事務所にもお分けしよう。
よければ今から一緒に行ってみませんか？
What a creep. I had no idea what he was trying to pull, but I had no reason not to go along with him. At least that's what I thought. So we're gonna knock on their door? We went to room 33 where I saw the curtain moving. I knocked, but there was no answer. He silently pointed toward the doorknob. It wasn't locked. There was a stench in there. I pressed a handkerchief to my nose and walked into the room. Guess Mr. Kuroki tried to get into it with him, and he killed him. There was a body that had been cut to pieces.
わあ、死体。初めて見ました。
警察に通報しろ。
通報ってどうすれば？
電話だ。1階の管理室へ行け。
自分たちの目的は重郎を探すことでしょ。よく調べてください。
The window was shut tight. There are no signs anyone had been in the bathroom either.
いませんね。復唱してください。
いない。
He set this up. I stayed during the police investigation, but they determined it was done by a kaiju and let me go pretty quickly. There was no way a human could slaughter someone like this. Who the hell was this Hibarino?
写真は必ず送ってください。お願いします。蝶津貝さん。
It wasn't fake. His smile was genuine. He could kill and still remain sane. Was the reason he didn't offer to negotiate because he figured he had already done enough to cover this up? I mean, it depends on why you kill, right? If you kill without the intention of killing, then yeah, you probably would be traumatized by it. Like, you would be thinking about those, those usually in JRPGs where people kill and they'd be like, oh my god, I killed a person, I killed a life, I snuffed out the life. I'm like, I don't care. If they were actually threatening my life, I'm like, fuck you. I care more about my life. Why the fuck should I care whether or not you live or die? And if your family wants to blame me for it, fuck them too. He called himself Yomi Hibarino during the interrogation. It was a name I couldn't forget, and he was someone I'd need to keep an eye on. A few minutes after I reached Shibuya, my brakes stopped working. I took my foot off the gas, but it stayed pressed down. It was working fine until now. What the fuck? Did he actually want to kill us? I ran a red light with a honk on my horn. I couldn't get my seatbelt off. Each abnormality became more and more distinct. Even if I were to change into a kaiju, I wouldn't be able to save my car from going up in flames. Unfortunately, he had been using his weird powers to come rushing to my aid. Oh shit! Is his powers really all the side effects? I had those powers now. There's no point in calling out to him. At this rate, I'd... Were we about to hit a girl? Kid? Crash. I turned the steering wheel toward the telephone pole. It was so sudden. A little girl picked up her ball and looked at me worried. The engine wouldn't turn off. I wriggled out of my seatbelt, grabbed the girl and ran. Sparks ignited the oil and my car was immediately engulfed in flames.
大丈夫？私のせい？
No, it's not.
僕の業だよ。
The flames spilled away to white paint. I saw its pitch black frame and felt like I could understand the way of the world. No matter how clean you are on the outside, a tainted heart can never be washed away. When something is broken, you can't go back to how it was. I agree. People say time heals all wounds, but it's always going to leave a scar. It was past midnight. I made it back to Sanginjaya by foot. The light on the second floor of my office was on, waiting for my return.
おかえりなさい。
I smelled dinner. Ishiki came out of the kitchen and immediately mumbled.
二人に教わったの。今度こそ大丈夫。
I actually was anticipating looking at them in kimonos. Sad that we didn't see a CG of them.
いらね
ウランもそう言っていたわ。きっと食べてもらえないだろうって。あなたって怖い人ね。
I threw my coat on top of the sofa. Right as I was about to go up to the third floor, my arm was grabbed.
車はどうしたの？音がしなかった。
え。事故だ。廃車にした。
誰の仕業？あなたに限ってありえないわ。
お前に関係ないだろ。
名前は？
His voice was threatening. Threatening? I always feel it's so hard to say threatening. I couldn't turn my eyes away from the anger in his face, which I was seeing for the first time.
ひばりの読み。
He had the power to read my mind. That was Sapphire's power. Had he done the same thing to him that he did to me?
出ていけ。
I was at my limit.
汚ねえんだよ。誰彼構わず触れる奴が作った飯なんて。
私のこと心配してくれているのね。
I was telling him to get out of my sight. I was telling him not to touch me and pushing him away. Was I the crazy one here? Ishiki pulled me into his arms. I guess Sapphire wanted Ishiki to have these powers because he was trying to tell Ishiki about what he saw, right, or what he heard in his thoughts. He and Tsuyashi lived filthy lives. Was I the weird one for not being angry about that?
正常よ。
Unlike Chotsugai, I don't need people to confirm my belief in what I do. I know that it's a lot easier to have someone like this, guys. That believes you, that confirms what you're thinking. You know, a significant other that does that. But that's not what I want in life. I should have been a more level-headed and kind man. I should have been a more reliable man. That was what I wanted to be. It was all his fault. Everything, all of it, was his fault. He made a fool out of me.
何が。
He had some nerve. How could he treat me like this while telling me he loves me?
過去の話はもうしないわ。この力も使わない。許して。
どこかへ行け。
私の力を返して。このままじゃあなたを守れない。
出 出てけ。
あなたから逃げないと決めているの。
僕は一人でいい。
From the very start, I knew my dreams would never come true. I didn't think I'd ever see her again. That she'd be single. That she'd choose me. But I still made the decision to be alone for her. I thought only of you, even to the point of making my own family hate me.
これ以上僕を愚弄するな。
ありがとう、シロ。綺麗でいてくれて。
People think this might be pure, but I don't agree with that. I do think he was living his life for something else. He wasn't living for himself. And I think that's actually wrong. But he doesn't seem to think so. So, as I said, I'm giving my thoughts on something. That doesn't mean that I want people to affirm them. I'm just giving my thoughts, guys. But Coach guy here clearly doesn't think what I say is right, so I don't care. I'm just saying that I personally wouldn't live like that. He said the words I wanted to hear the most while looking just like her. That meant he had slept with other people while looking just like her. With him. With people I didn't know.
お前なんかどうでもいいと思っていた。
I thought I could just live with my memories.
どうでもいいと。
And yet, I'll never forgive the people who laid their hands on you. Whether you want it or not, I'll never forgive the ones who defiled you. He brought his lips to my cheek. There were tears sliding down Ishiki's cheeks, just like mine. He grabbed me by the waist and hoisted me onto the desk. He wiped the tears from my cheeks with both hands, then looked at me with a passionate gaze. He pressed his lips against mine. I said nothing as I gave it into him, eventually opening my mouth. He smelled just like Belle. I knew it was her. Ever since I saw him at the bar, I knew. Ishiki let out a laugh. Was it really that funny that I wasn't putting up a fight? He put his hand on my belt. I immediately grabbed his hand.
冗談よ。
こういうことはベッドでするんだろ
Ishiki suddenly froze.
う。違うのか。
You know, I thought that when we were Chotsugai, he was gonna be the, male of this relationship, but turns out he's also the female.
私、シロのお部屋に入っていいの？
I tilted my head and nodded. Ishiki blushed and bit his lip, embarrassed. He pushed me down into bed, the weight of our bodies making it creak. It felt like I was being pinned down by some kind of cat-like beast. He kissed my ear through my hair. No longer able to handle the embarrassment, I turned away.
バカにしてんだろ。
してないわ。
See, the thing is, though, they're also trying to show that having sex is a form of, love, of showing affection. While I do agree with that to some degree, you don't need to have sex to show it. That's my firm belief. You could say that this is because I'm also just like Chotsugai there, which is a virgin, but I really trust in myself in this one. I want to look past sex because I am a very horny and perverted guy. I see sex as less driven than it is like love driven, right? As soon as I noticed the weight was gone from on top of me, I saw Ishiki set up to take off his shirt.
シロが可愛くて愛しいだけ。
The moonlight shined on his tattoos. There was a flower and a butterfly. His white chest once again cast a shadow over me.
シロも脱いで。怖くなっちゃった？
大 誰が貴様なんか。
I unbuttoned my shirt. My hands were sweaty, so it was taking me a while. Ishiki brought his face close. He undid the buttons with his teeth. His slow and suggestive movements made me tense up. That is, until he used his hands to rip open the remaining half. Buttons went flying. I tensed up even more.
綺麗。
Of course, I spent my life keeping myself pure. But you already got raped by him though. Who did he think I did that for? I did this for myself. I did this for no one. He hugged me tight, his body heat transferring directly onto my skin. His heart was racing. Mine was beating even faster. He pulled my pants down. He blew air into my ear, making my back arch. With my hips lifted, he pulled my pants down to my feet. Could have just asked.
私も気をつけるけど、前みたいに怪獣にならないようにね。怪獣同士ですると赤ちゃんできちゃうんだって。
Even when there's no female? Alright, there's the CG, guys. And this is where I'm gonna be out too. I don't really care about these scenes. They're a lot more romantic than the scenes in Tonkatsu Akuma, surprisingly. But, you know, I just don't care about H scenes for the most part in these playthroughs. Unless they're pertaining to the story. But yeah, patreon.com/Azaikyousuke. If you guys on YouTube want to see this CG. You guys saw most of the scene. The scene in this game for the smut scenes aren't very long. So I'm probably only gonna be gone for about 5 minutes or something, and the scene's gonna be done. Maybe even less. But yeah, people on Patreon, enjoy? Question mark?
私は構わないけど。
いや、おい、やめろって。貴様。
大丈夫よ。人と怪獣だから。あ、でもわかんない。多分世界初だから。
Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I thought it wasn't done. But it was pretty funny at the end because, Shotsuga actually turned into a kaiju at the end because, Ishiki wanted to come inside of him as a male, or not as a male, but when they're, basically what they're trying to say is that when they're in their human form, there's no way they can copulate and make a kid. But when they're in kaiju form, they don't have female or male or whatever, I'm guessing, so they can actually be pregnant. I don't know whether or not they actually become pregnant too, or if it's just gonna suddenly spew out of their butthole or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, before Ishiki actually came, Shotsugai turned into the kaiju. I'm probably gonna put that in. I'm gonna like keep that in. But yeah, it was pretty funny at the end. I rolled over into the corner of the room. The light of noon was shining outside the window. I could hear Ishiki's voice downstairs as I began to slowly put on my clothes. I was trying to stay calm, but I was having a hard time unlocking the door. I was here throughout most of the 8 scene, by the way. I was actually here throughout all of the 8 scene. I just whipped out my phone and was watching a video while it was autoplaying. It was like it was bound with chains, keeping me trapped in the memories of last night. Ishiki and an unfamiliar young man was talking in the lobby.
社長、おはようございます。
Why was he suddenly acting so formal?
君は
この春上京してきたもんっす。借りた部屋がボロボロで、後で文句言われたら嫌なんで、証拠写真を撮ってもらえねえかと。
It was finally a normal job for the springtime. Apparently, he was a university student starting at Sanjay this year. I actually don't know where the hell Sanjay is. He led us to a room at the top of a high-rise building. The previous tenant must have had a cat. There were scratch marks close to the floor. I took pictures wherever he pointed. Even though I looked indifferent the whole time, he began to open up to me for whatever reason.
ありがとうございます。いやー、最初はどうなるかと。オカマが現れたんでびっくりっすよ。
ああ、
取って食われるんじゃないかとヒヤヒヤ。
Okay.
オカマもブサイクは嫌いでしょうから。
Wow.
写真は明日受け取りに来てください。それでは底辺大学で良いキャンパスライフを。
I guess he actually took offense to that, Shotsuke.
やっぱ発送してください。
Ishiki was waiting for me in the lobby as soon as I got off the elevator.
次は早く起きてね。彼、私を見て怖がっていたから。
Ishiki disappeared as soon as we got outside. All I could hear were the sound of his heels falling behind me.
僕は同情しないぞ。そう思われるよう生きてきたお前が悪い。男は化粧なんかしねえし、ヒール履いて姿勢よく歩かない。
I mean, I personally don't want my girl to be like that too. I don't care whether or not she put on heels. I don't care whether or not she puts on makeup. But I do want her to have perfect posture though. It's actually good for your spine.
そうね。
その姿勢すら悪くなってる。声がちけえ。
ありがとう、シロ。シロ。
話せ。
Afterwards, I locked myself in the dark room, somehow managing to focus through my foggy mind. The photos that I ended up with were that university student's room. The photos Ishiki took of Miyamoto and Sapphire, and then Juro Sayashi's secret rendezvous with his boss. We haven't met up with Sho again, so I'm guessing we're gonna meet up with him soon. Because this is when we met up with Miyamoto and gave her the photos. Ishiki was sleeping in the lobby. I went outside to the payphone and called Miyamoto.
写真が撮れた。今から会えるか？
すみません。今日はちょっと野暮用が。
明日は？
夜なら空いてます。ここでは言えない内容ですか？
ああ。
楽しみ。ところで昨日の晩ご飯どうでした？
I didn't eat it.
一色さん、ありゃいい奥さんになるわ。
なれんわバカ。
I yelled before hanging up the phone. I suddenly felt someone watching me. When I turned around, Sapphire's sparkling eyes were pressed against the glass. I opened the door, careful not to ring the bells, and went back into the lobby. Seeing Ishiki asleep, Sapphire stayed quiet. I handed him an envelope.
昨日の写真だ。
ありがとうございます。どうでした？
どうって何が？
俺、似合ってました？
可愛かったぞ。
There's a gust of wind, and then an unfamiliar kaiju was standing there.
君こそどうした？
Isn't my room gonna be destroyed at this point? How big is my room? This is so dumb.
自分でもわけがわからず。
Ishiki, who is now awake, recrossed his legs.
恐ろしい人。
He had just woken up, so maybe he couldn't see very well, typo.
戻れそうか？
ちょっと無理そうです。
一回で休みたまえ。
ありがとうございます。
He was in a daze. When I handed Sapphire the bag he dropped, he began to rummage through it with his big hands.
社長にお礼を持ってきてるんです。
I told him that wasn't necessary, but he pulled out tickets to an amusement park.
ウラン様の休みと聞いて、遊園地のチケットを取ったんです。だけど、仕事が入ったみたいで。俺ってバカですよね。
学校に行きたまえよ。火曜だぞ。
だから、社長にあげます。
I like how he's just ignoring us. He was just going to ignore me, huh? His impulsiveness was characteristic for a high school boy in love. I was about to stubbornly refuse. Suddenly, Ishiki held out a 1,000 yen note.
買い取ってあげる。
おい、
これはお礼ですから。
このお金でまたウランを誘ってあげて。
一色さん。
Sapphire accepted the money and went downstairs with tears in his eyes. I watched him leave in a daze.
向こうが丘遊園で怪獣スカブーと握手。
Skabu? Okugaoka? Ishiki read the details in the ticket.
だからどうした？怪獣と握手したいなら自分の手でも握っとけよ。
Ishiki stood up, stretched, and got dressed. Already dressed, though. We're not going! Mukogaoka Park, huh? It was an amusement park that originally opened up in 1927. 27? At 27. And had a station named after it on the Odakyu line. It had a long history. That usually meant you probably shouldn't expect much out of it. Of course, the park staff looked confused once we got to the front of the line for a ride. There was a height limit of 5'10". 5'10"? How big is that? 165? 170 centimeters? I'm super short, I'm 5'2". 157 centimeters. This was a children's park. That rule was a no-brainer.
シロ、あなただけでも乗って。
So dumb. I guess he's so tall.
乗らねえ。
Stop looking so serious. Even I was over 5'10" with shoes on. Stop bowed toward us. Mortified, I walked off elsewhere. I was heading home, of course. We got some fresh air. That should be good enough.
残念ね、シロ。
残念なのはお前の頭だ。自分の体格くらい鏡で見慣れろ。
He suddenly stopped. I followed Ishiki's gaze and saw a funhouse nearby.
そこで一服してるから一人で行ってこい。
昔のシロならそんなこと言わないわ。
Well, the old me is dead, just like the old you is dead. He learned how to light my cigarette. I inhaled the damp smoke and began to walk around while Ishiki followed. I wondered what people must have thought about our relationship. As soon as I stepped in, I lost sight of Ishiki. He was right beside me. I could see him in a mirror in the distance.
シロの力って何だったの？
覚えてない。
そんなはずないでしょ。
It was an ability I couldn't talk about in front of others. He knew what it was, so his teasing pissed me off. I turned a corner and Ishiki was standing there. He held out his hand with a smile. I grabbed it without much thought and was suddenly pulled into a mirror.
これが私の本当の力。
This was probably what Ishiki wanted to show me the whole time. He held onto my hand as he passed through the mirrors like a dance. What was white and what was black? What was the past and what was the present? He smiled at my confusion but dared not to let go of my hand. Ishiki led me to the exit. The landscape was reversed. The revolving rides turned counterclockwise. There was no one here but us. Our positions had reversed at some point, and Ishiki was walking ahead.
帰るぞ。それともスカブーと握手するまで気が済まないか？
遠目に見られたからもう十分。
So we made like a reverse world inside of a mirror?
なおさら帰るぞ。帰ったら聞きたいことがある。
It felt like he was afraid of what I might ask. Even I was hesitant to bring it up.
お前の本当の名前が知りたい。
Suzu Ishiki. I heard that name for the first time last year on a winter's day. If that was his name, why did I call him Bell?
一人にさせて。
A veil of glass fell over my eyes. The glass sparkled with the light from the setting sun, displaying my reflection as it fell. The 5 o'clock bell rang throughout the park. The guests made their way home, their long shadows following behind them. Only I stood there frozen, among the rapid flow of time. The clouds in the sky were heavy with rain. I slowly made my way to the agreed upon place while being jostled around a packed train. I always made reservations at this members only bar whenever I had photos I was proud of. This is gonna be the Miyamoto and show scene. Miyamoto spotted me and waved her arms around him.
社長、遅いじゃないですか。
渋滞に巻き込。
マキコ？
Shotaro Kagome. What was he doing here? When I looked at Miyamoto, she pursed her lips, confused.
あ、知り合い。こりゃ偶然。
貴様どういうことだ。
どうもこうも、現場で知り合っただけです。
お疲れ様でした。
わあ、待って、もっとお話聞かせてよ。一人じゃ食べきれないんですけど。
I sat down and Kagome returned to his seat, with neither of us saying a word. The only one smiling like an idiot was Miyamoto.
翔太郎くんね、イカロスに憧れて俳優目指してるんですって。社長、鞘師十郎の初主演作に出てるんだよ。
余計なことを。
She just kept running her mouth.
なんと、社長の初恋の人も出てるの。
Look at him. He really couldn't care less.
それがね、男の子と女の子を勘違いしてずっと片思いしてたの。今期逃した童貞なんだよ。
人の事情を笑うのは良くないと思います。
おお、君もつぼみなのね。
I kicked her foot under the table to help her get to the point.
それで社長、見せたい写真って？
She did say that in the first chapter, huh? Wow, I actually didn't remember her saying that because it's so random that she suddenly said that. I pulled out some negatives and 3 photos from my breast pocket. I passed them face down to Miyamoto so Kagome wouldn't see them. They made even someone so frivolous as Miyamoto frown. She passed them to Kagome with a serious look on her face.
おい、勝手に見せるな。
だって翔太郎くんイカロスのファンだって。
余計見せるな。
A secret rendezvous with Tsuyashi. If he were a female fan, he'd turn toward the sunset and faint.
枕営業ね。だけどこの写真だけじゃ友達って言い切れるからな。
この変態が変死体で見つかった。
いいえじゃん。
同時刻、鞘師は生放送に出演していた。彼のアリバイは僕も認める。
生き量じゃん。
怪獣には特殊能力があるだろう。鞘師の背後に何らかの力を持った怪獣がついていることは間違いない。
I ignored their shock and gulped down my wine. I had no intention of overstaying my welcome.
あとは君が調べてくれ。報酬はいらない。必ず掲載するのが条件だ。いいかい？
He nodded in response. I left more than enough money for my glass of wine and got up to leave. That was when...
あなたに口出しする権利があるんですか？すみません。
文句があるなら僕がいるうちに言いたまえ。行き過ぎたやじ馬根性とでも言いたいのかな。
そうです。誰かがサエスさんに罪をなすりつけようとしているのかもしれないのに。
僕に正論は通じない。なんせ鞘師が憎くてやっているんだからね。
I felt bad, but I was also in a terrible mood at the moment.
それじゃあさよなら。
I gave in to my frustration and walked away, enjoying the sound my shoes made against the floor. It was raining outside the restaurant. After this next scene, I'm probably gonna end the episode here. Well-prepared people twirled their colorful umbrellas, making flowers bloom across the Shinjuku night. I was the only one letting the rain hit my shoulders. I must have been seeing things. That had to be it. Nevertheless, I went after him. Ignoring the rain, I ran against the crowd. Ishiki's secret. Ishiki's past. I ran, wanting to find out what he was trying to hide. I stopped. All I could hear was the sound of the rain and my breathing. I lost him. I turned toward the neon city and saw a reddish-black figure standing there.
お前は
Juro. No. Kozuka? A red flame danced as a left fist came toward me. Whoa, what the? This is Juro for sure. I jumped to the side, barely escaping with my life. Crouching in front of me was the white Icarus. No, it was Ishiki. The red Icarus's arm was hanging lifelessly. It had been cut in the blink of an eye. He ran up the wall of a building, moving against the rain. Don't go after him. Ishiki! Two shadows leapt across the buildings. I ran after them as fast as I could until I spotted Ishiki's back. What was I looking at? I couldn't tell who the bad guy was here. I had to bribe a security guard.
やめろやめろ
His mask was emitting an orange light. Is he being controlled by Yomi right now? I'd seen that strange light countless times before. It changed into a black kaiju. He charged toward the dying Icarus to finish him off. His feeling, his situation, it was all the same as before. The one giving the kaiju power, the one controlling it was. A beam of light broke through the ceiling. The area was engulfed with smoke. The kaiju was buried under the rubble and ceased to move.
どこ狙ってんだよクソったれ
That's Kozuka's voice. That's Sayada. There were two red Icaruses there. They were both facing Ishiki. I ran out and smashed my camera on the ground in front of them.
お前らの目的は僕だろ
If Suyashi was the head Icarus, the pictures I took of him would likely land him in hot water.
鞘師には僕が死んだと伝えろカメラが死んだら同じことだ早く逃げろ
Ishiki is going to kill you guys. One of the Icaruses begrudgingly ran off. The remaining Icarus hesitated before finally going after the other. I ran toward the rubble. The security guard that had changed back was no longer breathing.
意識
そうよ。この光は私の力。死んだ怪獣を蘇らせるの。
They weren't brought back to life at all.
お前がしていることはあの時の怪獣と同じだ
Kaiju that what? That killed everyone? The kaiju from that day that stole everything away from us. The security guard had a family. All of these innocent people were.
潔白な人間なんてそうはいないわ。
I agree. Well, children when they were born are basically innocent though. But as they grow up and learn more about the world, then their innocence is gone.
弟の前でも同じことが言えるか
私の目的はイカロスを皆殺しにすること。そのために手段は選ばない。あなたから家族を奪ったイカロスを許さない。
Is it really Icarus that stole my family? Or is it my own incompetence? No, that's...
あの日、鞘師真一は町に現れなかった。息子の鞘師十郎の誕生日だったからよ。
See.
もし彼が怪獣を殺してくれていたら、私たちは失わずに済んだの。
Can you blame him though? He has his own happiness to want to achieve. Of course he wants to be there for his kid. That's why.
私はこれからも駒を増やす。イカロスに後悔させるため。
意識
そんな地獄でもあなただけは守るわ。雨が止む頃、 あなたの町に火をつける。私とあなたの思い出の場所、止めたかったら探し当てて。今度は呼ばれても助けてあげない。
待て。
私の必要性を感じて。
I knew he saw things differently. Even so, I got how Ishiki felt, and I was ashamed of myself for it.
僕のためにお前がこんなこと。
I think whenever that transition screen happens, it's probably a good idea to end the episode. So this was actually perfect. I was gonna end after that scene anywhere, but it's not like I don't get these guys' reasoning. I just think it's very flawed of them to think that, you know... Well, I don't think it's flawed, I guess. I did say that individual feelings matter more than other people's. So their anger and rage are as justified as Shinichi Tayashi's happiness in wanting to celebrate his kid's birthday. So it's just a clash of, you know, people that have their own beliefs and whatnot. And I don't know. I don't know who's to say is the right one for this. If there even is a right way of thinking about this in the first place. But yeah, maybe if I were in their shoes, I would have thought about my own incompetence rather than thinking that was, you know, Icarus's fault. As I said, Icarus is not God, and even if he is God, it's really unfair to blame God for things that don't go the way you plan, right? So, this chapter is a lot more... To me, it's a lot more interesting than the first chapter. The first chapter had a lot more questions and just overall, you know, flashy scenes and whatnot, but this one is more of an internal struggle one. And I usually prefer these ones more than, you know, like showing us whatever the fuck they want with that first chapter. So yeah, really, really nice chapter so far. But yeah, will they have a happy ending? We don't really know their conclusion at the very end of the chapter, right? In chapter 1. We instantly go to, like, Juro Sayashi and whatnot. We don't know what happened to Ishiki and Chotsugai after they split off. But alright, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Give this video a like if you guys like it. What's up if you guys haven't? Patreon will be getting these episodes early access along with everything uncensored. Yeah, I don't think you really need the uncensored version of this game, to be honest, guys. YouTube members will also be getting these early access, but nothing uncensored. So yeah, I do think it's still better for you guys to pledge on Patreon, though. I get more of the cut, and it's overall just a better system because I can just set up like another website rather than just using YouTube's schedule or whatever to show you guys these videos that I have. But yeah, also for people on YouTube that aren't on Patreon just yet, feel free to become a free member because that's gonna be where I put first episode previews of future playthroughs. Okay, with that said, I will see you guys next week. Tomorrow is gonna be me recording some more Amayui. Well, not really next week, but in like 4 days. See ya.